Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Empire Soccer Report. We're already at 15 episodes. It's honestly surreal that this started as a potential idea late in 2025 and has already, hit the ball rolling. And now we are well into the midst of the MLS season for Red Bull New York, and we are bringing a beloved return guest to the show, Daniel Rebain.
Beloved.
Of course, beloved, bro. Come on now. I'm James Birle. My guest is Daniel Rebain. The Red Bulls, we've got two matches to cover for the first time in this show's history, not including preseason. So, Dan, how are you? And let's jump right into it.
Yeah, man, I'm good. For both of us, hockey season's officially over, so we're
Oof.
fully ingrained into the Red Bull season. And these past two games, I mean, pretty positive results, to say the least, and they needed them. So let's kind of jump into this.
I would say past three games now. Honestly, we've gotten to a point where, yeah, the last three games have all
Yeah,
been pretty positive.
you're right.
Going back to a 4-2 win at home over FC Cincinnati, then a 2-2 draw against Inter Miami away from home at the new stadium, and then a 3-1 win for us. It was last night. Not sure when people are going to be watching this or listening to this, but over the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in the round of 32 of the U.S. Open Cup at Sports Illustrated Stadium, setting up a round of 16 New York derby to be played on April 28th or the 29th. That one also going to be at Sports Illustrated Stadium. So let's jump back to the weekend and let's talk about this 2-2 shock of a draw, really. And I don't mind calling it a shock in more
It
ways than
definitely
one,
is.
and we'll get into it. Miami were coming off of a 2-2 draw against Austin FC. They're not going to be home for another couple weeks. So in their new ground, it felt fair to say that Inter Miami were really going to be gunning for the 3 points against
Mhm.
this young Red Bulls team. But it was be the Red Bulls who drew first blood. And it's the first goal of the season for one George Ruvalcaba on the assist from Julian Hall, the first of two assists for Julian Hall, just to open the scoring in that way. 15 minutes into the game, somewhat against the run of play, Miami controlled most of the bulk of play, especially into the second half, I would argue. But Ruvalcaba does well with the finish, and Julian Hall does well with setting him up. And yeah, your thoughts on what has been a budding start to the season from young Julian Hall and finally breaking the duck for Ruvalcaba.
Yeah, I think recently I've started to see, in specific moments in matches that Red Bull are finally starting to hit teams on the counterattack with Julian Hall's pace and, Rubalcava's pace, Kate Cow's pace as well. But it kind of showed on that first opening goal where, a ball's just played out wide right and Julian's able to get on it. Two defenders come to him. He's able to hold him off and find the, oncoming George Rubalcava, who's able to, calmly slide it past St. Clair and open a score in his first goal of the season. A much needed first goal of the season. We'll see how he kind of responds from that type of goal, type of positivity around his game going forward. But I think that kind of showed another element of Julian's game that's kind of evolving because again I kind of point to the big like just a major difference from 6 months ago to now where Julian Hall is able to kind of he's maturing physically. He just looks like a much better player. And obviously again he was 17, now he's 18. Like that was eventually going to come, but it's good to see that these type of moments are coming for him, right? Especially setting up that first goal on the road in the new stadium for Miami against Messi and his team. So what a great way to open the game 15 minutes into the game and 1-0 and Red Bull kind of held that lead until almost halftime.
Yeah, and that's kind of the next turning point I want to talk about because New York were in this game. I do think on the day and on paper,
Hmm.
sure, Miami are the better team. We're talking about a team, an MLS team that has Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez and
Yep.
Herman Berterame, who eventually would break his duck in the second half. And I don't know, I felt like that was definitely going to happen against a team like Red Bull, who was
Hmm.
admittedly vulnerable at the back, but the Red Bulls only had two shots on target in this game, and they scored two goals.
Yep.
So fruitful against a team like this is something you just have to be. But like you mentioned, Matteo Silvetti gets a goal in first half stoppage time, bending but not breaking. I think Ethan Horvath really got his flowers. He received a lot of praise for his performance in this game. Only conceded twice, and really neither one is on him. Um, and in that moment, I kind of got the sense, ooh, couldn't get to halftime with a 1-0 lead.
Yeah.
This is the floodgates are about to open wide in the second half, and an early second half goal as well. And Inter Miami, flips the switch in that moment, and you
Mhm.
feel like this is going to be a chance. Maybe they run away with the game. The mentality from New York to not be bothered, not waver in that moment. For me, that was a very significant turning point in the match. And then eventually, it's Julian Hall who gets another assist on a great little turn. He makes
Individual effort right
he
there.
makes Rodrigo de Paul look like someone who didn't just win a World Cup and hasn't spent the bulk of his career playing at the top level with Atletico Madrid in Europe. He made Rodrigo de Paul look like any other average MLS player. And in that moment, I think everybody who watches this Red Bulls team and everybody who is watching from afar gained even more respect for Julian Hall, who fizzes the ball across, and then Adri Mehmedi has the courage to step out of the number 6 position, which we've seen him do a number of times now, and get into a goal scoring area, and he's never going to miss from there. And it ends up being an excellent team goal that Julian Hall orchestrates once again, and it's 2-2, and the Red Bulls eventually see out the 1 point in a way where there were chances in the end where they might have even gotten a third. And Ethan Horvath, yes, had to be big, made I believe 6 saves on the game. I think maybe 4 or 5. I don't have the number in front of me,
That's
but
five.
5. But he was excellent, and the team as a whole, not a single individual you could pull out and say like, well, I wish they had done better on the night. Team effort, they all got the job done, and the response for me was the best part of that, Dan.
Yeah, and I think, to touch on that second goal, I think to see Julian do, have that type of effort, right? Where he's dribbling inside the box and is able to create on his own in MLS. I think that's the complete next step for him in his evolution, right? If he's doing that consistently, I mean, he can turn into one of the best players in the league. And that was great to see. I mean, he shakes Rodrigo de Paul out of his boots and, puts the team basically on his back and kind of drags them over the line and gets them that extra point. And shout out to Adri Mehmedi, banger of a goal from 6 yards out. For
They
his
all count the
first,
same.
yeah, for his career one. I mean, you got to tip your cap. He's just been all over the field to start the year. Adri Mehmedi from the sixth position. And for a kid that's only, just turned 17 years old, he looks like a veteran on the field most nights. So, um, yeah, I think that response you touched on it. I mean, was Messi's miss before the equalizer?
I think it was 2-1 when Messi missed. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that was a big turning point of the game as well, right? Messi's trying to have that individual moment. He almost had one late in the game, but was saved off a free kick from close out
That
by
was
Horvath.
never a foul. I was
It was never a
livid,
foul. Yeah.
livid when I saw that. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to be biased, but if anything, it would have been a foul on Messi, but I
So
digress. Continue.
Horvath makes a save there, but earlier it's when Messi kind of pulls the ball just outside the post when Red Bull is scrambling, and I think that goes in. I think game over right there. But to see Messi in that moment, where most of the time, 9 out of 10 times he's probably scoring that, putting it inside the post. But for him to miss there and Red Bull's able to respond and go find an equalizer themselves, I think it says a lot about this team and especially for this young team. I mean, you looked at it, right? We haven't even touched on, Ronald Doncourt's game. I mean, he was probably the best player on the night for Red Bull outside of Julian Hall's kind of individual efforts offensively. But yeah, I think that was a great thing to see. Great response after, picking up that victory against Cincinnati the game prior. So you're able to get, 4 points in your last two games after kind of struggling before the international break. Um, that it was just a great overall game to see, that type of response and not, kind of folding under the pressure and under the bright lights that you've kind of have in the past against a Messi-led Miami team.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, they had been humbled in the each of the 3 previous matches against this Miami team, and now the all-time series between these two clubs remains even. It's the first ever draw between Red Bulls and Inter Miami, I believe. There's 6 wins apiece and
Yep.
now 1 draw. And I think the mentality is what separates this past iteration of the Red Bulls getting a result versus the previous few.
Hmm.
They could have crumbled after,
Easily.
not having the lead going into the second half. They could have crumbled early in the second half when they conceded, and they refused to. And, attitude reflects leadership, the greatest quote from Remember the Titans. And you got to look to the manager, yes, Michael Bradley, but also just this collective has had a little bit of relentlessness to their
Hmm.
ways in a way that I think maybe even the Red Bulls team that found their way to MLS Cup in 2024 maybe didn't even have. And I think a lot of that starts with the gumption of these young players, and you
Hmm.
have to tip your cap to the mentality, the fearlessness of this young group. And you mentioned Ronald Doncourt. For me, he has been the best player in a Red Bull shirt all season long. Julian Hall, rightfully getting a lot of praise for his ability in front of goal. Now, after the Pittsburgh game, I believe he's got 9 goal contributions in 8 matches across all competitions. That is spectacular, especially for an 18-year-old. Adri Mehmeti has taken the league by storm as well. Let's not forget Matty Dos Santos, who has quietly worked his way into a regular starting position on the left back position.
Hmm.
He's been excellent as well. Tanner Rossbro has been impressive off the bench when he's gotten those opportunities. But I still think if there's one player that is missing at any given day from this 11, after Emil Forsberg, obviously, Ronald Donkor is a player you cannot miss. If
Hmm.
Ronald Donkor, knock on wood, God forbid,
And we already saw it this year.
if he becomes unavailable for an extended period of time for whatever reason, um, that is a big cause for concern for this Red Bulls team. Any other player, barring Forsberg, who is obvious, we know this already about Emil Forsberg. He's clearly, the guy for this team. He's the captain, the most expensive player, DP, long pedigree in Europe. Him and Ronald Donkor are in another level in terms of their importance for this team. Julian Hall, if he's missing, yes, it's a problem, but Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting's behind him. Same thing for Mehmeti. You know that Gustav Berggren can come in and is more than capable of playing at this level. I'm not sure there is a like-for-like replacement for either Forsberg or Donkor. They've
No.
just been that good. And Donkor continues to climb the ladder, continues to get better in every single game. I think maybe the second half against Charlotte is the only time where I've looked at Ronald Donkor this season and thought he could have done more. He could have provided more in this game.
A lot of players you could have said about that game.
And that's exactly right. So I'm not picking on Ronald Donkor
Hmm.
to say that. He has been superb, and he was absolutely superb against Miami, which was why, segue, I was a little bit surprised to see that he was going to be in the starting 11 against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. And the reason I say that is
Donkor wasn't
because
starting.
Donkor did not start. Are you sure? No, did he
Yeah,
come in off the
Ben.
bench? My apologies. My segue was ill-advised, folks. That was a bad segue. The reason I teed it up that way was because, well, a lot of players from the starting 11 remained in that starting 11. Not only is it on short notice from Saturday into this coming weekend, but they've also got a midweek game the following week against DC United. And since they had won against Pittsburgh Riverhounds, there's going to be another midweek game. So in the month of April alone, let me just pull up the calendar real quick. The Red Bulls are playing a number of matches in a short span of time. They've already played 3 matches in April. They're going to play another 4 more. So it's going to be seven
Yeah.
matches in April alone. They played last Saturday. They played yesterday. They're playing this Saturday. They're playing Wednesday, and they're playing Saturday, and they're playing Wednesday again. So that's 6 matches in the span of just 2 weeks. 6 matches in 2 weeks. That's crazy. And we only saw 5 changes to the starting 11 last night. Yes, one of those changes was, in fact, Ronald Doncourt. That is my mistake. Um, but the reason I bring that up is because it was a little confusing for a lot of us to see why they hadn't made so many changes. I think Emil Forsberg is obviously, the biggest name. He's played up until the game against Cincinnati. He had played every minute of every game.
Hmm.
And at 34 years old, a lot of folks already suspected he played maybe too many games, too many minutes, or was forced to out of necessity in 2025 at age 33, where we've seen Choupo-Moting maybe see less of the workload because of the emergence of Julian Hall. Um, Forsberg has had to play this much.
Yeah.
So it felt like maybe a game against the USL Championship side and the Pittsburgh Riverhounds could have been an opportunity for him not to start. Michael Bradley clarified afterwards that they felt like he was too important of a player not to have in the team just to set the tone early. I think it ended up being a good decision. He scored another sensational free kick. His 2 goals on the year are both beautiful free kicks.
Hey,
Um,
golazo.
Dude, right off the foot, right off the bat, you
Yeah,
knew
you
that
called
that
it.
was
Yeah.
that you right away you knew that that was a goal. I mean, he just struck it so perfectly. But the starting 11 to get into those changes, only one change in the back four. Gustav Berggren comes in for Dylan Nealis at the center back position. I thought he was very good in this game, and I thought he was until he received that red card against Charlotte FC was pretty solid. I know that's a big caveat there until he was sent off for a rash challenge that denied a goal scoring opportunity. John McCarthy took Ethan Horvath's place. Finally, Horvath gets a rest and McCarthy gets to strut his stuff. Probably could have done a bit better on the Pittsburgh goal, but otherwise, steady game from him. Didn't have too much to do. The midfield trio, the one change is Benedetti. Now, when Benedetti comes in for Ronnie Donkor,
Hey, you look good.
and he was good. He had his first assist of the season. And then the front three, only like for like changes. Sofo and Mosquera come in for Cowell and Ruvalcaba, and a little bit of a change tactically for Michael Bradley. You have the left-footed Mosquera on the right and the right-footed
Inverted.
Sofo on the left, the inverted wingers, as opposed to putting Cade Cowell on the right side when he's normally adverse to playing on the left and cutting inside. You want to get him for the crossing ability, so a bit of a different feel in the front part of the team, but only a number of changes. This is a pretty strong 11 to have put out against the Riverhounds. And in the first half, they kind of made easy work of Pittsburgh, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at those changes, and again, not many of them. And Bradley told us, post game that every game is important to them. The Open Cup is important. They're trying to go win it. So every game they're trying to win, and from that mentality, you like that specific you like that specific mentality. But I feel like they could have gave Forsberg, a bit of a rest, maybe play him that first half and kind of bring him out in the second half. But from Michael Bradley's point of view, he's just too important to not have on the field. So I respect that mentality. Hopefully, it doesn't come to bite them later in the season, especially as the summer comes along, because we felt that weather last night at Sports Illustrated Stadium, very humid. And it even got hotter today. So the weather's coming. Um, so personally, I really like Mosquera's game from that right wing. I know nothing on the stat sheet per se from an assist or goals, but I think what he brings from that right side as an inverted winger, cutting inside, being able to go down the byline and get across in. He's also dangerous on set pieces as well. I think I think I said it to you last night. If we see Kate Cowell kind of, keep going the same way he's going, I think Mosquera is going to take his spot eventually, and probably by the end of the summer. I think Mosquera could be, the starter at right wing. I think he is just more dynamic. He has more to his game, being able to dribble inside, kind of find those passes, with the midfielders. We'll see how it goes, but I really liked his game, kind of apart from everybody else last night.
And I think that's, I don't necessarily disagree with you about Mosquera and that prediction, but it also comes at a time where Kate Cowell has started to hit his stride a little bit more as well. Had a very good game against Cincinnati, decent game against Inter Miami as well. And Mosquera, I think, has tools that maybe are a little bit different from the skill set of the other wingers in this team at the moment. Another thing that I thought maybe, not the end of the world, but this felt like maybe a game for Choupo-Moting to start, maybe a game
Mm.
for Tanner Rossborough to start. Neither of those two are in the squad, and neither is Andy Rojas, who was instrumental in Red Bull 2's victory over the weekend with his late last gasp free kick goal. So, but only again short benches for the U.S. Open Cup,
Yep.
and there's just been a whole lot of discussion about the Open Cup in general, how MLS has tried to dilute the competition. A very sparse crowd at Sports Illustrated Stadium, to say the least.
Yeah.
Some antics in the press box in terms of trying to physically count all of the individuals who were sat in the stadium
Yeah.
and the capacity count and the attendance numbers, which we didn't, I don't think actually were reported, but were at least in the 1,500 to 2,000 range, I think was what we ultimately were hearing from the club. Some different rumors from security or what have you. But rules are no matches can be played that are not at your main stadium unless there's a scheduling conflict. That game belonged at Montclair State University, let's be real,
Yeah.
or it belonged in Pittsburgh. And there should be a rule for the lower division teams always to hosting. I got on the Twitter
Yeah,
sphere, I
we
saw
talked about
people.
it. We
Yeah,
talked
we were
about it
talking about it at the
yesterday.
game yesterday, but after the fact on Twitter, I've seen people complaining about MLS teams playing on stadiums that have, you know, American football lining, and they're playing in small capacity stadiums for smaller teams. And like, that's how you grow the game. That's like,
Yeah.
this is a thing in other countries. You go to play at worse stadiums, smaller
Yep.
stadiums, worse pitches, because this is that competition. And I love that for this. Unfortunately, maybe some executives with MLS teams or with the league itself maybe don't see the tradition as important as some of us do, some of us sickos. But um, I absolutely loved seeing cup sets. Louisville City won Knoxville, USL League One, beating DC United. New Jersey's Kyle Linares putting in the final penalty to win that game. Like,
Yeah.
this is all great stuff. This is why we love this game. So yeah, a little disappointing to see the crowd at Sports Illustrated Stadium, but I'm not blaming the fans for this. This game
Yeah.
went very unpromoted, as the U.S. Open Cup games often do. Like, this game belonged in a more intimate environment, in my opinion. But regardless, just judging the football that happened on the field, because that was a bit tangential. To get back to the game, Julian Hall gets two more goals. He's at 9 goal contributions in 8 matches, all competitions. I believe he's at 7 goals now in
Yeah.
8 matches across all competitions. I mean, that's remarkable. The first one, a lovely team goal. When Benedetti gets the assist, his first goal contribution with the first team. And then Hall gets one early in the second half, and that pretty much sunk Pittsburgh from the game. They did get a consolation goal in the 79th minute, a header off a lovely corner from Hofstra University's Elliot Goldthorpe.
Yeah.
Um, Trevor
Gold.
Ammon puts it in. There's always a connection. There's always a local connection in this competition,
Yeah.
and the forces at B the powers that be don't want you to enjoy it, folks. Don't listen to them. This competition deserves to happen, and it ends up being a win that the Red Bulls cruise to. One thing, Rold Mitchell does come on and gets a head injury. That's unfortunate. You hope it's nothing too serious. He did seem
Yeah.
to be in a bit of pain coming off the pitch. Michael Bradley assured us that hopefully he was doing fine and they were going to reevaluate him. So we'll wait and hear about that. I thought maybe this could be a game where Tim Parker, gets a good run at it. He only played for 17 minutes off the bench. But Gustav Berggren getting 90 minutes, I think, is a plus. Benedetti getting in and contributing is a huge plus. We'll see how some of these guys. This is a young team, but we'll see how some of these guys deal with all these short matches in such a short amount of time. 6 games in 2 weeks. Guys like Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy and Audrey Mehmeti playing as much as they have in this run is going to be interesting to see. But a 3-1 win in the competition, and now we know who's next. In the round of 16 on April the 28th or the 29th, it's New York City FC. The Red Bulls are 3-0 against NYCFC all time in the Open Cup. They are 5-0 against NYCFC all time in knockout competitions, including Leagues Cup and the MLS Cup playoffs.
Yep.
That's a big one, Dan. The players seem excited for it. They mentioned it. Michael Bradley mentioned it. Can't wait for that one. The Red Bulls have pedigree in this competition that NYCFC perhaps doesn't, but it's going to be all to play for at Sports Illustrated Stadium in a couple weeks' time. What are you most looking forward to in that match?
Yeah, it's a big game, and obviously it's the first derby of the season. Michael Bradley's first time kind of being in the middle of it. Obviously, he was, a spectator last year as the second team manager. He's been a spectator around the league, with his time in Toronto watching these games, and I think this team's gonna be real up for it, man. You know, Michael kind of brings that fire to this team, especially in these bigger games that we've seen early, and even last year we've seen him bring that fire, and I think he's gonna be up for it. I think he's gonna get these guys ready. You know, you already see some of these young guys that have lived this derby through the academy. I mean, Julian Hall is a former NYC Academy player as well, so you know this game means even extra to him. Audrey Mehmeti's from Staten Island, you know, New York City native. You know, Dos Santos is from Connecticut. So all these guys have kind of lived it already, and now this is going to be, you know, another test for them. Audrey Mehmeti and Dos Santos is going to be the first one uh, against the senior team. Obviously, Julian Hall scored that goal last year, and that was big for him. So I think this is going to be a very, very fun matchup. I think, you know, NYC has a good team. Red Bull is kind of starting to find their form again after their first two games to the season, and then after that, they kind of fell off a bit. But now these past three games, you know, they're kind of finding it a little bit more, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting to see what type of crowd it's going to be. I think we should expect a bigger crowd than we did last night, obviously. Um, but let's see if a midweek game, obviously against NYC, you know, fans are going to be excited for this type of a matchup, especially in a knockout game. Can Red Bull keep it going? Can they stay unbeaten in knockout games against NYC? Uh, I believe the only time they've played on the road in this matchup was in the playoffs. So every other game has been at home for them. So them being at Sports Illustrated for this matchup is going to be big for them.
Eh, I think a lot of the hosting often comes as a result of the stadium preferences.
Of course.
And
Yep.
in,
Availability as well, you know.
availability is a big reason, but also CONCACAF for the League's Cup, don't allow matches at the baseball stadiums for the most part. U.S. Soccer has tried to avoid having those
But
matches at the baseball
all I'm saying
stadiums for
is
the Open Cup.
you just gotta take advantage, and you know you
And
get
that's that's
another home game.
that is up to the Red Bulls to do on April the 28th or the 29th. If you want an idea of what the crowd might look like, I suggest you looking back to the clips from the 2022 Open Cup match between the Red Bulls and NYCFC. I believe that was also in the round of 16. The Red Bulls won that game 1-0.
Yep.
That was
John Tolkien baiting a red card.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was the Omir Fernandez, I believe, scored the goal in that game, right? And then the 2023 they played in the League's Cup. Um, or I could be
Think
wrong. I think they won
no,
that
yeah,
Open Cup game
Omer.
3-0, and then the League's Cup they won 1-0. Omir scored in the League's Cup. In the Open Cup, it was Lewis Morgan scored, and Luquinha scored. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you know.
I'm getting
Yeah,
it's too
too many
many
different wins to
too
think
many
about.
different wins in competitions in knockout competitions. But I think this is a better NYCFC team than they've played in recent years.
Of course, yeah.
And they've struggled in league play in the last couple seasons against NYCFC. So no reason to be overly confident, but
Especially
reason
at
to be
home.
confident. Yeah, and at home is true. Well, before we cut away and listen to some sound bites from after the Pittsburgh game, um, I do want to ask about Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting because he wasn't in the squad for this game,
No.
and he felt like a candidate to perhaps start and get a real proper run in a way that he hasn't since they played against Montreal, and that game did not go their way, of course, and that's the
Mm.
next opponent. Is there cause for concern about Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting maybe feeling a little bit unsettled at the moment, you think? I know there was a rumor that he was unhappy and left after hearing that he wasn't going to be in the squad for this game. I don't know if there's any truth to that. But, as a player who's making as much money as he is, with as much fanfare as he rightfully collected last year, the pedigree of playing at PSG and Bayern and in the Premier League, is this a player who maybe is a little bit frustrated with the lack of playing time he's getting at the moment? And I imagine there's going to be opportunities for him to play. We've said there's 6 games in 2 weeks. If you blow it up a little bit more, it's 8 games in 3 weeks. So there's a congested schedule. For him to not take part in the game where you're playing a second division team seems a little bit strange. What do you think he's thinking right now?
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, at least, you know, I think we saw in the one game he did start this year. it just seems like he doesn't fit Michael Bradley's system and what he wants out of the striker, right? And that's just what I've seen so far. Obviously Chupo's a great striker. On top of his game, we saw it last year, right? But I just think for what Bradley wants out of, the specific role of the striker, that Chupo just doesn't offer what he wants. And we've seen that with Berggren so far, right? Where, there's an opening at that second eight position, but he goes with a striker or a winger to play in that position because Berggren might not be progressive enough for that position and what Bradley wants out of that. So I think he's really set in what roles he sees for players. Right off the bench, he was good against Toronto, getting that equalizer. So I think there's definitely a role for him here. It's just how many starts is he going to be getting, especially when a Julian Hall is just clicking on all cylinders. I think when we saw that first game of the season, right, and as Julian Hall starting over Choupo-Moting, I think Bradley was kind of trying to tell us something, right? And at first, I'm like, maybe that's just a message to Choupo. It's not going to be easy to get these starts. You got to kind of prove it in training and kind of you know I don't know the word, but like kind of find a new game or find a different level for what I'm trying to bring here, right? And he's kind of showing us that Chupo hasn't kind of brought that yet. Maybe in training, maybe in games. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously he is making all this money. This is his last season on his contract, other than a team option at the end of the year. If he is unhappy or he is unsettled, because it does seem like he could be unsettled. I mean, not being in match day squad midweek when you've not really played a bunch this season, where easily could have gotten minutes yesterday, especially after the team goes up 3-0. Um, it's gonna be definitely a situation to watch. I don't know how it plays out, but they I feel like they do need Chupo as a big time role player on this team. Behind Julian Hall, other than Chupo, there's really nobody that can play striker for this team or at a consistent level in MLS play, right? So I hope they kind of get that figured out. Hopefully, that rumor was wrong, and he just wasn't available. They were just giving him that game off because they didn't need him. But we'll see. Um, I think Chupo still has a lot of game left. We saw it last year, and I think Red Bull need him. So hopefully he's back in the squad this weekend against Montreal, and he kind of proves everybody wrong that he still has it, and he's able to play in this type of a system that Michael Bradley has.
Yeah, and Choupo-Moting's not the only, more higher profile player in this squad that's maybe playing a lesser role than they were brought into and are, taking a back seat to some other younger players. And of
Yep.
course, I'm talking about Gustav Berggren here, who we got to talk to at length after the match last night. We also caught up with Julian Hall and Nerwin Benedetti. Got a little bit of knocked the rust off of my conversational Spanish with Noen Benedetti, and of course we talked with Michael Bradley. Take a listen, and then we'll be right back.
Thanks, Coach. Gustav Berggren got his first full 90 minutes of the season today. Very steady at the back. Does it feel like maybe he's found a home as a center back as opposed to maybe his more natural position as a central midfielder? And Rold Mitchell coming off tough break with the head injury there. I know it's early, but if you have a update on his condition, perhaps.
Gustav is an incredible professional. It hasn't been the easiest start to the season for him personally, and he continues to come in every single day, and he works as hard as he possibly can. He gives everything he has to the group. He is ready in any moment to give us everything that he has. And, I felt really bad for him in Charlotte because, we asked him to play in the back that night. And for the first 55 or so minutes, he had a good game. And then he ended up on the wrong side of a play and ends up getting the red card. And so that part amongst a bunch of other things that night was disappointing. And again, I was disappointed personally for him, because he had been pushing and waiting for a chance to then play, and for it to end like that. That part was a shame. In this last period, he and I have had a bunch of conversations to just say, look, we still see him and all the qualities that he has as a midfielder. But given the makeup of our squad and given where we are with a few different things, that there are going to be days in training, there might be moments in games where we use him in the center of the back. And he has been as open as you could possibly be to that. And he was excellent tonight in terms of just understanding what the game needed, how to put out fires, how to take care of plays, how to add his football and allow us to play in a really good way. And so I'm very happy for him.
Sorry. Yeah, you had a second part to your question, right?
Sorry. We're still waiting to, he's doing fine. And we'll continue to monitor and evaluate over the next the next hour or so, and then see how he feels tomorrow.
Gustav, first 90 minutes of the season as a center back, how are you enjoying this new role in the team, playing in the back four?
It's okay. I prefer to be midfielder, but it's all right. It's fun to play.
Michael had high praise for your professionalism to this point of the season. You've had a lot of positive conversations with him about playing in multiple different roles, about coming off the bench in some areas. How would you say you've been able to deal with some of that maybe adversity and come in and have a good performance like you did tonight?
I'm a team player. I need to help the team. If I can help the team now by playing central defender, I will do that. So no matter where he put me, I will do my best to try help the team.
You had a good view of Forsberg's free kick there. Saw you were the first one to congratulate him after the goal. What did you think of his performance tonight?
Yeah, he's special. The things he can do in the pitch is incredible. So I'm just happy to be in the pitch at the same time as him.
It's good to have another Swede around in the team as well, right?
Yeah, it's nice to talk Swedish with him, and yeah, he's a cool guy.
Another 2-goal performance for Julian. I mean, you've seen him, in his young phase of his career, have so much success early on. Just what have you made of his performance so far, and especially tonight?
Yeah, he's really good. Young kid, but a lot of confidence, and he just needs to keep scoring, and he will have great care.
It's going to be New York City FC in the next round of this competition too. Michael mentioned that you guys referred to that in the locker room after the match. Just your excitement level about the New York Derby on the horizon.
Yeah, the derby is always something else, so it will be fun. Now it's first game on Saturday against Montreal, and then the derby, so it's a busy week.
You had Rafa and Mohamed on the wings today instead of Cade and George as per usual. Just what do you think about their performance, and how'd they help you get those 2 goals today?
No, yeah, I thought they were great. Sofa and Rafa are very direct, and they make a lot of good runs. They're very threatening to the back line, and I thought they were really, really good tonight. So yeah.
¿Puedes explicar tu nivel de confianza en este momento después de este partido?
Bueno, el entrenador me da la confianza a mis compañeros, entonces nada, estoy muy contento, me dan la confianza de poder jugar tranquilo, de poder hacer mi juego. No es nada que no lo trabajemos todos los días, entonces para mí es normal jugar con el equipo y nada, hoy por suerte el equipo funcionó bien y eso también lleva a un buen rendimiento individual, entonces nada, estoy muy contento por eso también.
So we got the chance to hear from Michael Bradley, from Gustav Berggren, Julian Hall, and Nowen Benedetti. I think the most interesting stuff there is, Julian Hall, obviously, we've talked about it, continues to be a force in the attacking part of the pitch. Michael Bradley is very clear that his praise for Julian isn't just limited to the goals and the assists, but the way that he presses, the way that he organizes the attack, the way that he organizes the defense by being the first defender, his ability to get into good areas to score. He always stays between the posts, and he alluded to that as well. He had praise for Mohamed Sofo as well as Rafael Mosquera. Gustav Berggren, I think, is pretty clearly not the happiest about playing as a center back, but I mean, he referred to himself as a team player. I'll do what it takes to help the team win. And I think he might have, found his position. He's not going to play over Adri Mehmeti. He's going to be the support for Adri Mehmeti, and that might open the door for him to play more minutes as a center back. What'd you make of him playing in a position that he's not, so used to, and how his attitude has been in dealing with that?
Publicly, I love his attitude, man. I feel like you don't see that a lot from football players, soccer players, right? You know, for especially in his kind of position, his kind of where he is in his career, right? You can see other guys potentially, go through the media and say, call a spade, say this is BS, all this type of stuff. But for him, he's out here trying to just be the best, teammate he can be. He said that if they want me to play in any role, I'll play it. I bet you if they asked him to go play in goal, if a goalie got a red card, he'd go in goal. If he needs to go play striker, he'll go play striker. So I think you need these type of players on your team, especially when things aren't going, ultra positive for them. And for him to kind of adapt his game into a different role, different position, like completely different position from where he's used to playing. And obviously through 2 games, the one red card aside, I think he's kind of adapted really well for a player that's never played in that position before this season. So it's going to be interesting if they keep going this direction with him, where he kind of is that depth center back, depth central defensive mid, to spot start in different roles this season. I've loved how he's talked about it. I loved how his teammates talked about him and how he is in the locker room. Julian Hall said he's never complained about anything. He's never brought it up to them. So very, very, good to see that that's how he's handling it. So I've to touch on how he's played. I thought he did really well last night. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep it going and improve on what his game has been through 2 games at center back.
And you mentioned Julian there, and we've talked a lot about him to this point, and I just want to continue because going back to the game against Cincinnati, he had a quote that I really loved. I said, you're kind of almost reminiscent of Bradley Wright Phillips in the way that you've been scoring goals, just getting into good areas in front and making them look easy almost. Really poacher's goals. And he even said, yeah, I've talked with Bradley Wright Phillips, and that was his advice for me is, those are where the goals are scored. Those goals don't go away.
That's who his coach was, a Red Bull too. So.
Absolutely. Exactly right. I can't think of a better figure to be imparting wisdom onto a younger striker. But the goals he scored against Pittsburgh, not exactly, right in front of the 6, not from long range by any stretch, but not exactly poacher's goals, combining and playing and getting on the end of a couple team goals. And for me, that's a good evolution to see from him, that he's still, getting into the right areas. You see that cleverness about him that is so rare for a young striker, even in this league. But for him to, how now have added a couple different metrics and different ways to find the back of the net, I think can only be a good thing. And hopefully, I imagine he'll get the start against Montreal on Saturday. They bring that into Stade Saputo on the weekend. So let's get into the
first,
upcoming...
let me just...
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, if you got something, please.
I just want to say on Julian, we've talked about just the improvements in his game, and I brought it up to him last night. I think the biggest improvement has been his off-ball movement. Obviously we see it with the goals he scored early in the season, right place, right time. That's a skill. That's a skill that elite strikers have, that they are in the right position at the right time and scoring those goals. So, and then apart from that, just being in the right place right there, his 2 goals just are off combination. Obviously, the ball into Emil Forsberg, he kind of takes his defender out of the space. Julian takes that space that's left by the defender, and Benedetti first touch pass in behind the defense, goal. I think that was excellent. We would not have seen that from Julian last year in MLS. I think he was still kind of learning where to be in like, senior football. And we've seen it before in the lower levels and next pro and the academy, that he's in those positions. But taking that next step to senior football is always definitely a learning curve, especially for attackers. And I think he's starting to find his rhythm and his off ball movement, where whether it's making that running behind at the right time, kind of dropping in inside the box, or being at that far post right for a tap in. I mean, we've seen it all through these early parts of the season where he is getting those tap in goals, but you got to be there to go tap those goals in. So I think that is a big element that has improved of his game so far, and I think it's only going to improve from here on out.
I mean, yeah, the soccer IQ is something that has been impressive to
Hmm.
everybody who's watched his game, and equally impressive to Audrey Mehmeti,
Yep.
who, in different ways, was excellent again against Pittsburgh, and I think will hopefully, I think everybody in this Red Bull New York team is hopefully looking to get some revenge on Montreal, because this Montreal team has got one win on the season thus far. I'll give you one guess against who it was. It was a 3-0 win at Sports Illustrated Stadium, match day 3 of the year. They just lost 2-1 to the Philadelphia Union over the weekend and said goodbye to Marco Donadel. I believe this will be the fifth new coach in 7 seasons for CF Montreal. The revolving
Brutal.
door. The Saputos are rightfully, in my opinion, getting criticized for how they're managing this team. Um, it hurts because I think Montreal, we've seen before when they've had good teams just how great the support is there in that stadium and for that club. Um, I would love to see Montreal be more of a factor within the Eastern Conference, and I say that as someone who was up close and personal when they uh, took the Red Bulls to task
Oh
on
yeah.
match day 3. But now, after a 1-6 start to the season, Philippe, because I believe he's French, sorry, Philippe Oulafroy is the new manager in charge. The interim, that is. He, years ago was with the Montreal Academy back in like the 2010s, was with Stade de Rennes as a manager way back in the day, in the late 90s, early 2000s, was with McGill in the mid 2000s, has been all around the Quebec area, was with Lyon most recently before coming back to CF Montreal this year, in a analysis role with the head of methodology / performance was his title. Now he's the caretaker manager with CF Montreal after being an assistant. Had 145 appearances for Troyes as a player. The 62-year-old manager. This will be his first match in charge. So interesting to see if there's any wholesale changes to the way this Montreal team plays or how they set up. I probably don't think there will be. What I am interested to see, and this will be a question mark, is they did kind of experiment with how they approached the game against Red Bull earlier this season. They went with like a pretty rigid 5-4-1. It looked like a 5-3-2 at times, with Ivan Jaime stepping up as a striker next to Prince Owusu, who absolutely bullied the Red Bulls back line in that match. If you'll recall,
Yeah.
he was, let me just pull it up, I think 6 for 6 in aerial duels in the first half alone. Just absolutely dominant. Yeah,
Yeah.
6 for 6 is unreal. Like, you can't let that happen. Um, but he is that type of striker. And then, of course, old friend Wiki Carmona tormented the team with a cheeky little free kick goal and was on the right end of a Ethan Horvath mistaken possession. And they won 3-0 in that setup. Most recently, been playing with like a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 at times. And it looks like Wiki Carmona has been mostly playing as the number 10. We'll see how they set up. We'll start with the Red Bulls 11 because I think it's pretty clear how the Red Bulls are going to play. I think Ethan Horvath will be in goal, Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy at the right back position, Robbie Volader, who is starting to grow into this role as a starting center back in the absence of Justin Che. He'll play alongside Dylan Nealis in the center defense, Matty Dos Santos on the left,
Yep.
Audrey Mehmeti, Emil Forsberg, and Ronald Donkor will return to the starting 11. Julian Hall will be down the middle with Cade Cowell on the right and George Ruvalcaba, fresh off his first goal performance against Inter Miami. He will be on the left. Yeah, I think this is a strong starting 11. It's the system, that has been identified and developed by Michael Bradley. I think they're going to run back to it. Before we get into it, let's take a look at what could potentially be the 11 for Montreal. I think Thomas Gillier will be in goal. could be a bit, could go a number of different ways at the right back position. Could be Tor Halson. Dawid Bugai got the last start against Philly. I think he'll play right back. Efrain Morales and Brian Vera, the center back. Luca Petrasso, the left back. Matty Longstaff, Victor Loturi, likely to be the double pivot in the midfield. Tor Halson has played as a right winger. Perhaps he could go back to there on the day. Wiki Carmona or Sinchuk is an option, the Ukrainian. Wiki Carmona at the 10, Ivan Jaime on the wing, and Prince Owusu up front. There's an ability for this team to do damage, and the Red Bulls know that better than anybody else. But with a new manager coming in, this is a real opportunity for the Red Bulls to go to a place where they've traditionally struggled in Montreal. I believe they've got one win there in the last 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, not good.
And there's also revenge should be on the mind. This is a team that had no business going to Sports Illustrated Stadium and beating you as badly as they did. And now you've got a chance to go back onto the road and maybe catch them when they're vulnerable, pick up 3 points, and continue this great little run that they've been on. How do you see this one shaping out on Saturday, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of set up, right? Is it going to be similar to how they, attack the game against Red Bull at Sports Illustrated, where a lot of time they had Wiki Carmona man marking Adrian Mamedi in midfield, and that kind of took away a lot of what Red Bull likes to do. And I think that's going to be the number one adjustment that we should be looking for from Michael Bradley these next couple of days, or they probably have already been working on it following the Cincinnati game. I mean, the Miami game. How they kind of negate that type of defense against Audrey, because a lot of stuff runs through Audrey in midfield. So if he's taken out of the game again, it could be a similar result. So I think that's the number one thing to look for. And if Red Bull is able to get off to a good start like they did against Miami, I think with the new manager, I think players could get a little anxious on the ball, and that could spiral for them. But if we see a similar start for Montreal, where they get that penalty early, if they get some momentum early in this game, it could be trouble for Red Bull, especially with the new manager bounce.
Well, you mentioned the first goal, and this is something that we've talked about in different episodes. This is something that it's become a narrative with this team, and as you might expect, this is not anything groundbreaking when it comes to soccer teams, and in particular this Red Bulls team. But the first goal is super important for the Red Bulls specifically. They have scored first in all of the matches that they've won, and when they haven't scored first, they've struggled. They didn't score first against Montreal. They didn't score first against Charlotte. The only game where they didn't score first and were able to eke out a result was that 1-1 draw against Toronto, where they stole it at the death off the foot of Eric Max and Choupo-Moting. I think the first goal will be especially important when you're away from home against Montreal. I do think that if they don't score first, they could get back into the game the way they had done against Toronto. Similar makeup between those two teams, teams that are looking to punch above their weight, trying to find an identity. New manager now for Montreal is, that could be a boost and it could be a hindrance. It could be a team that's searching for an identity. It could be a team that is playing with a little bit more urgency. I think they came to Red Bull Sports Illustrated Stadium the first time around on match day 3 this season with that urgency in mind, and ended up coming away with a dominant 3-0 win and 3 points. I hope that the Red Bulls are the team that starts the match with that intensity, because Montreal could very well be able to match it in this one. I think the Red Bulls will look to control the bulk of play in the way that they did against Cincinnati, in the way that they did against Pittsburgh, in a way that they weren't able to do against Miami, but still found a way to be relevant in that game. I do think that this is one where they should look to control it from the start and try to do their damage early on. Easier said than done, but I do think the Red Bulls are the favorite to win this game for all those reasons. They could get caught, like you mentioned, Dan, but I like New York to go into Montreal and come away with 3 points. I'm going to say a 2-0 victory for Red Bull New York. What is your score prediction, sir?
I will say this was the game that, they had Julian Hall playing midfield with Eric Choupo-Moting playing up at striker. And I think that really disrupted a lot of things that,
Yeah.
was working through 2 games for Red Bull. Obviously, we will not see that this weekend. We hope not. But yeah, I think, having Julian up top, starting that press and leading the charge there. I think Red Bull has shown that they're able to kind of get off to these good starts when they are on and locked in. And I think after these last 3 games, they have that kind of momentum. They have that, you know, positivity to their game that, they are a good team still. And, those 3 games prior, might just be a blip, right? That, things came at the wrong time. So, I think they're going to be able to get off to a fast start. I don't know if they get a goal early, but I think they're going to be able to keep Montreal off the score sheet early. And I think they're eventually going to be able to get that first goal. And I'll say that they get out of Montreal with a 1-0 victory.
I like that prediction. One thing I'm looking forward to watching is how they manage the minutes for some of these guys. If I don't think this is a game where they can afford to leave an Emil Forsberg or a Ronald Donkor or Julian Hall on the bench, or an Adrian Mehdi even for that matter, or a Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy. I think those are guys that are all proven to be crucial to the starting 11, and I think they're going to have to play the bulk of this match on Saturday, and then they're going to have a quick turnaround with DC United on Wednesday. Probably will not get an episode in before previewing that, but expecting the Red Bulls at home against a traditional rival. Probably won't be the best crowd as it's a Wednesday night, but another vulnerable team in DC United who are maybe on an upward trajectory from last year, but still not, fighting for the top of the Eastern Conference. Certainly not yet.
They still lost last night.
They did lose to one Knoxville SC. And then, it's right back to Cincinnati on the road. Tough schedule, condensed. A couple of things before we say goodbye, Dan. I don't know if you saw this. I just found this. New York City Council is looking to name a street after Thierry Henry ahead of the World Cup. The New York metro area is hosting 8 matches, expecting to generate $3.3 billion in economic impact. The bill, the NYC Council is looking to introduce legislation to boost small businesses, expand bathroom access, just tourism preparation. This is standard stuff when there's a big event coming to the city. The bill package also includes a plan to create Thierry Henry Way in Manhattan and Pele Way in Queens. I don't have the full thing in front of me, but as far as I know, nothing here to be named after David Villa, but I could be wrong about that. Thierry Henry is on here, Pele is on here, and they cut it right there as soccer legends to grace the metropolitan area in this city. Awesome. I hope they do it. I hope Thierry Henry Way is in Soho where he had a penthouse.
If you're able to get a street named after you, I think that means you got to get your jersey retired. So I think that just got to be next on the list.
Well, now that you mentioned that, the newest signing for Red Bull New York appears to be wearing number 14.
Are we sure that was 14 or was that not 74?
Well, either way, he's taking a Legends number because the Tom Birle 74 should also be retired. But definitely looked like 14 to me. Marcelo Morales, of course, wore 14 in a few matches before he returned to Universidad de Chile on loan. And the final thing is, the World Cup, all this stuff happening with the World Cup continues to be crazy. The off-the-field stuff, that is. Whether we're talking about whatever Iran's status is to play in the games, or the newest thing about the transportation, NJ Transit is supposed to be charging premiums, but then New Jersey Mayor Mikey Sherrill came out with a video saying that this was something that FIFA implemented that they're trying to fight now, where they were expected to provide free transportation, but now they can no longer afford it. It is a whole SHI you-know-what show ahead of the World Cup. I hope they figure it out. I hope the transportation is, if not affordable, free and funded, and the infrastructure is all up to snuff, and there's enough rides going to and from. I think it could be a potential disaster if this sort of thing isn't sorted out. Like I mentioned, there's 8 matches. Go ahead.
By the way, FIFA's banned parking at MetLife.
Yeah. No parking and no tailgating.
Parking, no tailgating. how are people supposed to get there? I'm not even thinking about like fans. I'm thinking about media. Like, are you expecting media to all travel by train and bus? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, even for the fans, like that's like MetLife holds, 80,000 fans. Like that parking lot is huge. You're telling me nobody's going to be able to park there? That's ridiculous.
I'm assuming maybe they're gonna set up like they did for the Stadium Series in the NHL a couple years ago. They just set up attractions all throughout that parking lot,
It's ridiculous.
concerts, food halls, little mini pitches and stuff like that,
You can
merch
do that and
setups,
still have
and
parking
still have
available.
parking spaces. I mean, if they can't, the idea is then you have to expand the rail service, the bus service dramatically because public transportation sucks in this country. It's one of my biggest critiques of this country. And even saying that, New Jersey and New York has the best in the country. And even then it's still not very good. Like
Yeah,
MJ Transit is
normal
really pretty
day.
bad.
Yeah. Well,
And that's the best in the country, even.
for me, when I take it, normal, fine, right? It's always I don't have any problems for the most part. But you're telling me now you're gonna have millions of people, coming around here. I mean, that's gonna be a disaster. So, whoever is covering World Cup, foreign media, local
It's
media,
we're already
it,
in
it's
the
gonna be
most
brutal.
we're already in the most densely populated area of the country.
Yeah.
We already have, in my opinion, maybe like weaker compared to the rest of the world, at least weaker considering what the demand is. Public transportation infrastructure relative to the rest of the world, relative to the needed amount of travelers and commuters, like already one of the most traversed areas by uh, drivers and commuters for public transport. And then you just the anticipated extra demand is going to outweigh all of that
You
if
know
they
what I'm
can't.
about to do? I'm about to rent. I have an extra room in my house. I'm about to rent that
Yeah,
sucker out. I
I
mean,
hear a lot of people are
I'll
thinking to do that.
also, hey, anybody need rides? I'll give you a ride. $50.
And look, there are still games that have not sold out where the ticket prices are astronomical.
Yeah,
Um, I wish there weren't so many reasons for people to get less and less excited about this World Cup. That is
yeah.
that is so many things from political to transportation to economical. There are a lot of reasons for
Everybody is
people.
dropping the ball,
Yeah,
from local government, FIFA, it's like FIFA and local government are going at each other's necks. And you know what? You know who suffers? The fans.
yes,
Everybody that is coming here now has to suffer because they have to pay $100 to take, New Jersey Transit from what is it, New York Penn
you got to take it to
to
Secaucus, and,
MetLife.
and then you got to take the connection to
Bro,
the
like
Meadowlands. Yeah.
ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing from the governor to kind of implement.
Well, apparently, Mike Sherrill in their latest video appears to be trying to fight that and doing right by the fans. I don't
Well,
know.
she's the one that said it.
I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what's going on. Again, I just wish there weren't so many reasons for people to
Yeah.
say that this World Cup's going to be a disaster. From the outside looking in, it doesn't look too great right now. I think maybe some of these things will,
Sorry, James.
may, may,
We'll be watching from our comfy couches
that's what I'm saying.
in our AC houses while
Yeah.
everybody kind of goes through that.
Yeah, I think maybe, once the first ball is kicked, some of these problems start to go to the wayside, but I fear that also may not be happening. I say, to get back on topic, 2-0 win to Red Bull New York over CF Montreal on the weekend. You have a 1-0 win.
That is correct.
We
Julian
both see
Hall,
wins.
once
Julian
again.
Hall. I think Julian Hall, yeah. I'm not going to bet against him to score. I'll tell you that much because he seems to be making it look easy lately.
Yeah.
But Daniel Rebain, any final thoughts before we depart?
No, man. Like I said, hockey season's done for both of us. We're kind of now fully going in on Red Bull for the rest of the season. So, you know, obviously we're gonna have that little break in the summertime, but it's gonna be a fun rest of the season for us covering this team. Looks like they potentially could be good. Potentially, maybe maybe they fall again, but
Sometimes maybe
a
good,
lot of
sometimes.
yeah, no, a lot of waves right now. So we'll see if they continue on that wave or they can kind of steadily improve their game. But from what I've seen so far, I like how this team is setting up, how they're playing. The young players kind of developing right before our eyes for another season. So I've liked what I've seen so far, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, well, with that, thank you guys for joining Empire Soccer Report. Apologies if it's a little bit of a long episode. Had 2 games to get through, had a game and a half to preview because we didn't really talk about DC United much. But that one on Wednesday, Red Bull's going to go to Montreal, a place where they've traditionally struggled, facing a new coach in Stade Saputo on Saturday. For Dan Rebain, I've been James Birle. Thanks for joining episode 15 of Empire Soccer Report. See you next time.